my name is Dan Ariely, and I'm the James B. Duke Professor of Psychology and Behavioral Economics, and I'm coming to you from my mother's kitchen in Israel. I have this lovely painting behind me. I'm just kind of showing you the painting. And I've basically been on this chair for about 7 weeks, looking at this painting for all this time. Okay, so first of all, you might have noticed that I have half a beard, and you might have wondered why or what kind of bet I lost. Well, I didn't lose a bet. I was badly burned when I was much younger. About 70% of my body was burned. Most of my body is covered with scars, including the right side of my face. So I just don't have hair. These are all just scars, and it looks sort of symmetrical, but it's not. It's not really. Okay, now let's we've covered facial hair. I think that's topic number one. Let's move to something else. So up to about 7 weeks ago, 2 months ago, I was at Duke working in my lab, and then I started getting lots and lots of phone calls from different governments, mostly from the Israeli government, about the Quranic Crisis. At some point it was clear that it's very hard to help remotely, so I came to Israel, where I'm now. And in this process, I got to tackle lots of things that are Corona related. In the beginning, they asked for my help with some very simple, seemingly simple things, like how do you give people instructions with the hope that people would adhere to the instruction? For example, if you say to people, stay at home, will they listen? What if you say, stay up to 100 meters outside of your home, but don't exercise? Or yes, go to the pharmacy and grocery store, but nothing else. And what do you do with people who have to go to work? So we started thinking about how you actually give instructions in a way that makes them feel desirable and appropriate and easy to know if you're following the rules or not. And then we had some specific cases with Orthodox Jews and Muslims during Ramadan. Then it was clear that the education system was completely unset for remote learning. So we started studying what kind of combinations work better and worse in this kind of world, and how do you take the resource that kids have at home and utilize them in a better way? For example, you have 3 kids and only 2 computers. What do? Do you pair 2 kids up, even if they're not exactly at the same level, to learn something? And then it turned out, really sadly, that domestic violence has increased. Some against women, a lot against kids. What do you do with that? And we came up with 2 plans for reducing domestic violence. How does the government give money? What are the right ways to do it to try and stimulate the economy and to reduce stress? What do you do with taxes? What do you do with prisoners? There was a big fear. Tracking people. How do you trade off privacy concerns versus accuracy of the information? Anyway, it's been fascinating. Among all the conversations, one of the things became very clear is that we're not set up for these situations. And my kind of meta insight about all of this is that the world is really trying to focus on efficiency. What's efficient? Imagine an efficient airline. A plane lands, people deplane, they clean it, they fuel it, new food is coming up, new people, and it takes off. An efficient hospital, 100% capacity of beds. An efficient factory, raw material comes in, process, leaves the minute it's being created. And if you thought of a continuum between efficiency and resilience, we've gone to efficiency very, very much. We hate seeing waste. So as individuals, we don't want to have 3 months in cash sitting somewhere. If we have money, we want it to work for us in the stock market, let's say, or in some investment. If we're in a business, we want everything to be efficient. We don't want to have extra merchandise sitting there just in case. If we're running a hospital, we don't want 10% extra bed just in case. And we have this drive toward making things more and more efficient, because every time we make a small efficiency improvement, we see the benefits. But of course, resilient systems are incredibly important. So think about small businesses that did not have 2 or 3 months money uh, in access waiting. Those businesses are going to start either going into bankruptcy, will have to borrow money, they'll have to pay the interest. Things are going to get worse and worse for them. Now, in a human way, we are not built to create systems that create resilience. But I think the Quranic Crisis is showing very much that we have to start doing it. By the way, the only places that really do it are things like the military. We don't come to the military and say, show us what you need for the next month and we'll just pay you for that. No, in the military, we understand we have to prepare for all kinds of contingencies. Turns out we need it not just in the military. And that's really a big question, is how do we prepare for resilience? How do we take small probabilities of things going badly that comes from all kinds of things and incorporate them? So that's kind of a big thought. I don't have a good answer for this, but I know we have to prepare for it. Personally, companies, society. But today I want to basically kind of cover 3 topics. Why did we react so strongly to the Corona crisis? Why is it so bad? And how do we get out of it? Okay, so let's start with topic number 1. Why did we react so strongly to this? And I want us to start by thinking about the identifiable victim effect. And if you remember, there was a little girl called baby Jessica that many years ago got stuck in a well. She fell very deeply. She was stuck there. It was a very narrow place. It was very hard to take her out. It took more than a day. And she was covered on CNN, and the person who eventually took her out, his picture was on a Time magazine as the person of the year. Amazing story. But it turns out that she got more coverage than Rwanda and Darfur put together. How come? And the reality is that one cute little girl stuck in a well is really pulls at our heartstrings, right? We're really attached to that, and we want to know what happened, and we wanted to save. And when the tragedy is very large, we don't feel the same. Or think about another story. Imagine that you're going to a job interview. In 15 minutes, you have a job interview. It's the job interview of your life. You dreamt about this job, and you're sure you'll get it. If you'll just get the job interview, you'll get the job. They promise you. It's the final interview. You've done 10 of them. It's the 11th interview. The job is basically yours, and you have a new suit, and new underwear, new socks, and new shoes, and you're so excited. And you're walking over a bridge, and as you walk toward the end, you hear a cry, and you look from the side of the bridge, and you see a baby drowning. Now, if you jump to save that day, baby, no job interview, you lose your job, 100% sure. If you go, you will not save the baby, but you'll get the job. Now, what's the rational thing to do? The rational thing to do is to say, let me go and get the job. This is just one baby. I'll get the job, and I'll donate 10% of my income for the rest of my life to missions that save babies' lives. And by doing that, I'll save lots of babies. I mean, it's very cheap to save babies. Like, why spend all this amount of money, all my future income and my happiness and so on one baby? I can save many babies in the future. But of course, it seems crazy. I mean, that's the economic rational thing to do, but it sounds cruel and like a sociopath. Who would want to be that person that says that? Of course, nobody. So what we do is we jump, we save the baby, and we give up a lot. Now, why am I mentioning this about Corona crisis? Is that we have this image of people dying, that we could prevent it, and we also have an image of people dying without air, choking to death, without respirators, without ventilators. And that's just unbelievably painful for us. And because of that, because it's so painful, like the baby drowning, we do a lot of things to protect it. Now, the Corona crisis is very sad, and certainly it's horrific that people die, but people die a lot for all kinds of reasons. If you came to Earth from another planet a year ago, and you said, these Earthlings, how much do they care about people who are old and sick? And you would look at what do we do? You would say not that much. They don't seem to care that much. There's not good hospitals for the elderly. We don't do preventative care. And medications are limited. We don't seem to care that much. All of a sudden, if you came now during Corona time, you say, wow, these earthlings really care about people who are sick. Now, why is this inconsistency? Right? I mean, in regular days, we could have spent on an average year another, $1 trillion or $1 billion. So we could spend all kinds of money to make people's lives better, but we usually don't care. All of a sudden, we care a lot, right? We're gambling the whole economy on this. What happened? And I think that the analogy to the identifiable victim effect is very much there. There are things that we don't think about that much. People dying in car accidents, people dying from smoking, from cancer, from diabetes, respiratory problems, heart problems. Yes, we care, but we care a little. We don't care that much. And all of a sudden, we care a lot. And I think what happened is that we have this image of a death that is caused by a virus. By the way, it also helps the virus is frightening. It's on the news. We keep on thinking of it all the time, right? Unlike malaria, for example, that we haven't thought about for a long time. And then this image of somebody dying because we didn't do something, and somebody dying without breathing, with kind of choking to death. That's just very, very painful thought, together with constantly looking at the news and being fed by it, which is causing us to react in a very, very strong way. So, of course, there are other reasons that got us to react so strongly. Lack of knowledge, uncertainty, fear was very high. We didn't know how much we could trust the information coming out from China. So there are the other reasons as well. There was a combination of factors, but one of them is the identifiable. It's not so much the identifiable victim effect, it's the identifiable cause effect. There's something there about to hurt us with a very strong image of people dying because we didn't do much, and people dying without respirators and ventilators, and that was just very, very hard for us nationally, so we took lots of actions. Okay, second point. Why is it so bad? You could say, look, the Corona crisis is a 2-3 months thing. It's like summer vacation. Like, why do we predict such a big economic catastrophe? Why is it so disproportionate? And the answer is that our economic system has very little resilience, and that economics is less about percentage, or let me say differently. The model, I think, is a bit more like biology, is that you have a tree, and the tree yields fruit, and as long as there's enough water, you get fruit. And if there's not enough water, the tree is not providing you with a proportional amount, there's zero fruit or dramatic decrease. So imagine we have a bookstore, and every day we sell 100 books. Do we make profit on all 100 books? No. Maybe we break even at 90 books, and the last 10 books give us profit. But if we sell 98 books, we lose money. So what happened is that every day we sell 100 books and we make a little bit of profit. All of a sudden, Corona comes. Do we sell 100 books? No, we sell 0. Now, every month we accumulate debt. We make 0 income. And what are we going to do with this debt? We were barely living. We only made money on 10 books, right? We didn't save that much. And now every month we get more into debt and more into debt. And now we need to borrow money. We have to service the debt plus the interest, right? And you could say, oh, it's 2 months. No, it's a lot. It's a lot. Because if we only made a small amount of money up to now, how are we going to make this extra moving forward? And also, Corona days are not going to be over all of a sudden. Because imagine that we have like 2-3 months of 0 sales. and then they're going to open the markets. Are we going to jump back to 100 books? No. Maybe we'll jump back to 50. And that means that every month we'll open our bookstore, we'll lose more money, because remember, we have to get to a certain level to just break even. So we have a lot of periods in which we had cost and no income. We have expenses but no income. Many people would have to take loans. Their future profits will have to service those loans and the interest rate. And it will take a while until we scale up our expenses again. And for a long time, these businesses could keep on losing money. So why is it so bad? Because lack of resilience, and because businesses need a lot of money just to break even. That's the structure. And if we count on at least breaking even and then getting more, there could be a long period in which businesses will keep on losing money. And now for the third point is how do we get out of this? And I think in general the Quranic Crisis have shown two big things. One is that society is very fragile, as we started with, right? We don't have resilience, where it's very, very fragile. One things break, lots of things break as a consequence. So we're very fragile, and we really need each other. Those are very, very important points. Sorry about the music. And I'll tell you a story about this need to collaborate, because I think that an important way to get out of this will mean that we have to help each other. So there's a game we call the public goods game, and the game looks like this. You have 10 people. Let's say 10. We randomly sample 10 people in the U.S. and we call them in the morning and say, "Hey, you were sampled together with 9 other people. And here's the game. Every day we'll call you, and every day we'll give you $10. And we'll do it for a while, and you could do one of two things with those $10. You could keep the money to yourself, or you could put the money in a central pot. Keep the money to yourself or put it in a central pot. If you keep it to yourself, you're $10 richer. If you put it in the central pot, all the money that you and the other 9 people will put in the central pot will grow 5 times during the day, and in the evening equally divide by everybody. And by the way, you'll never know who the other people are. It will be perfectly anonymous. And that's the game, and we play it day after day after day for a while. What happens? You start playing this game. You call 10 people in the morning, you tell them the rules, you give them $10, and they all put the money in the central pot. 10 people put $10 each, $100, right? 10 multiplied by 10. During the day, it grows up 5 times. In the evening, equally divide by everybody. So in the morning, we have $10. Everybody puts the money in. $100, multiply 5 times. $500, equally divide by everybody. Everybody gets $50, right? Life is great. You wake up with 10, you go to sleep with 50, and life continues like this for a while. And then one day, one person decides to put 0 in. You can probably think about your friends, who would be that person? One day, one person decided to put 0 in. Now, 9 people put $10 each, $90. Multiply 5 times, $450. In the evening, equally divide by the 10 people, because the bastard who didn't give money still gets something, right? But the bastard has $55. They have their $10 from the morning plus the $45 they got from the public good. And now the question is, what happens the next day? What happens the following day? And the answer is that very quickly nobody puts money in. And this is a game with 2 equilibria. There's a good equilibria in which everybody participates and everybody benefits. Everybody wakes up with 10, goes to sleep with 50. And there's a bad equilibrium in which nobody participates and nobody makes money. There's not a stable solution in the middle. Like if half the people give and half the people don't, it doesn't work. It's either everybody or nobody. And the other thing that happens is that when everybody participates, everybody benefits. And it's a very weak equilibrium. If we're in a good equilibrium, it's enough for one person to deviate, one person to betray the public good, that the whole thing starts to deteriorate. If we're in a bad equilibrium where nobody participates and nobody contributes, and one day, let's say for 3 months, nobody puts money, one day two people put money, what happened the next day? It goes back to 100%? No, goes back to zero. And the reason I'm giving you this metaphor is that this metaphor of the public good is really kind of the kind of things we can do together, right? Separately, we can't build roads, and we can't build hospitals, and we can't invest in research and clean air, all kinds of things. We can't do it separately. If we each were an island, we couldn't do all these amazing things. We do them together by pooling our resources, right? And that's the metaphor for the public good game, is we put our money together, and the reason it grows is because we can do things together that we couldn't do separately. Hospitals, really, really important. Clean water, really, really important. Can we do it separately if we each lived in a different place? No. We have to pool our resources together. That's the first point, is we have to help each other. And the second thing is that if some people defect, some people betray the public goods, the whole thing collapses. And I think this is one of the keys for the economy, is that the government is going to inject lots of money in, and I'm personally not worried about the banks. I think they'll be fine, and probably airline companies, but the small businesses around us are not. They're not going to get enough money from the government. There's not enough money that the government could give those small businesses, and it's our job to keep it alive. And we have to realize that we all need to contribute. We sometimes think about our economic environment as we're being in competition. Oh, I want to pay a little bit less for coffee, or my local grocery store is a little too expensive. Why aren't they as cheap as the big one? But the reality is that we're not in competition with those. We are in a symbiotic, collaborative relationship. We want them to stay alive. My life is better off when my local grocery store is open, and when my local coffee shop is open, and even the art gallery not too far from me, even though I don't buy much from there, is important. Is important to me. So the question is, are we going to get together and help each other? And I don't know. It's a real question. I mean, there's a risk that we will all be a little stressed and try to keep the money that we have and not want to spend it. And of course, then we will make the problem larger and larger. It will take longer and longer for businesses to get into break even. Or we might create new rules for ourselves and say, let's go out. I can tell you that in our lab at Duke, we pick a local business every week, and everybody in the lab, we're only 50 people, but everybody in the lab spends $100 on that business. And sometimes those businesses are closed, and we just say, here's $100 from $5,000 from all of us, and we'll come and buy merchandise in the future. Now, that's $5,000 a week. It's not a lot of money, but if we all did things like that, we would help. So the question is, how would we get out of this? Only if we work together. Working together is an incredible opportunity, and we need to figure out how to do this. And then one more thing about getting out of this, we will have long periods in which our habits would change. Right? We had lots of habits, like going to coffee and restaurants and bars and walking out and hugging people, and we had a lot of habits. And Corona time came, and whoops, our range of behaviors have shrunk a lot. We're doing some things more, like maybe sleeping more. Actually, we have some research people are sleeping a little bit more. Certainly watching more TV, watching the news more. What will happen after? And I want us to think about habits and how will things change as we open the gates a little bit, and what will go back and what will not go back. And I wanted to give you one kind of principle, which is learning from experience, and what is that predicting about going back. So imagine something like grocery shopping, going to the supermarket. The gates will open, they'll tell us we can go back to sort of normal life, maybe with social distancing, maybe with mask, and we will go back. and we'll go back to work, and we'll go back to supermarkets, and we'll be very afraid in the beginning because we've been kind of anxious and at home and wash our hands a lot, and all of a sudden we go out and who has corona and who is not, and what am I touching and what am I not touching. But we'll go to work and we'll go to the grocery store and some other things, and those things will teach us that things are not as dangerous. Right now, our panic, or when the gates will open, our panic will be higher than the real risk, right? The real risk is high, it's getting lower. The real risk is going to be low, and the panic will be higher for many of us who've been locked and thinking about the risk for a long time. And what will happen is that things like going to a grocery store and going to work will learn that things are not as dangerous. One day we'll bump into somebody, and the first time we'll bump into somebody, say, "Oof, is this bad?" And one day we'll use a cup for coffee or for water that is not ours in the kitchen of our workplace, and we'll worry about this. And one day we'll forget to wash our hands as thoroughly, and we'll worry about it. But we'll have these experiences that will teach us that it's not as dangerous. One day we'll forget our mask and we'll see that nothing happened. So what happened is that initially the panic will be higher than the risk, and then over time the panic will go down because we'll have these feedback loops. But there are other categories. For example, going to the movies or going to a nightclub to dance. That nobody is going to force us into them, right? We're not going to tell people, okay, every Friday night for the next 3 months you have to go to a nightclub on Friday night. No, it's not going to happen. And on those things, the gap between our fear and reality is going to stay high because the experience is not going to moderate it. So one of the things we need to realize is that people are not really good at learning from description. People are much better in learning from experience, for good and for bad. Sometimes we learn the wrong lessons, but we learn much better from experience. And we need to think about how is life going to go back to normal via an experience. Okay, so we said work is going to be fine. And by the way, for my group, in the beginning, I'm going to tell them, take your time. Please come to work, but if you want to come for shorter, it's fine. You want to go and work some from home, it's fine. I don't want people to get stressed, and I want them to basically learn over time that this is not dangerous. I don't want to tell them it's not dangerous. I want them to experience that it's not dangerous and to get used to it. The other categories like Disney, going to movies, going to nightclubs, that are going to suffer for a large degree. Now, is this written in stone, or can we change it? I think we can change it. So for example, one of the recommendations I'm making to cities is to think about what are intermediate institutions that we can create. So for example, think about coffee shops. Can we get people to go into busy coffee shops like we did before Corona? No. People would see a very busy coffee shop, they will not go in. What if we ask the coffee shop to spread out, have more table, have more chairs? One city, Tel Aviv here, I recommended that the city hall gives them the 4 parking spaces next. That's just spread out, take a lot of space. Get people to sit, big distances, outside. And after 2 weeks, make the chairs a little closer, and a little closer, a little closer, back to the sidewalk, back into the coffee shop. Those are the kind of institutions that we need, because we need to give people the experience of being less stressed. So to summarize, Corona time, absolutely awful in all kinds of ways. It incredibly fascinating for social scientists in a terrible, sad way. It also demonstrates the importance of understanding human psychology. And I think there's a couple of really interesting things here, like about why did we react so strongly? Why are we going to suffer so long? And what are we learning from this? And for me, the learning from this is about resilience and how important it is. It's about how much we need each other, and we need to collaborate economically and socially. And it's also about how do we need to rethink our institutions in order to basically teach ourselves that we need to be less afraid of life, and over time, hopefully, go back to our less anxious self. And with this, I will end here, and I will just say thank you.